Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. Such a pleasure to be here on the very first weekend special. That's the special edition we are starting on the Good Morning Education Show. If you are familiar with the show, you will know that we start the show from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Monday to Friday. But now, your favorite education show is now starting with us. We will now have a weekend edition. So we have Saturdays, 9 a.m., and then we have Sundays at 5 p.m. And it's such a pleasure to be here to give you the opportunity be a part of the show. And if you're joining us, please do let us know where you're joining us from. Tell us your name, tell us your location. You're streaming from. We are streaming from Lagos, Nigeria to West Africa to Africa and the entire world. It's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Ebenezer Odetola Israel. Thank you for joining and welcome on this special edition of the Good Morning Education Show. Now it is 7 days as opposed to 5 days a week. And I believe that you will tell someone to tell someone in your group across all the platforms that we are here live on the Good Morning Education Show. Also, would like to ask that if you don't mind, please do share our videos, like our videos, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. On the Good Morning Education Show, we spend time to dissect issues that border around the world of education, conversations within the world of education, news items within the world of education. We learn together, we share together, and we try as much as possible to ultimately grow together. It's such a pleasure to be here hosting the very first show on the first Saturday of September. So it's the first Saturday of September, but it's also the first Saturday show. It's not necessarily going to be long, but we have something interesting for everyone out there. If you'd like to say something, do let us know. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Thank you for those joining us on Facebook. Thank you for those joining us on YouTube. And of course, those who will watch the replay much later. It's always a great pleasure to host you. We will be going to have a conversation. Normally on the show, we spend some time to also identify news in the week, events of the week. And then we'll take a step further to also do some showcase, which sometimes we also give opportunity to talk about the grant opportunity for the day. And beside that, we also spend some time to treat a subject matter of discussion. And today we will go straight into the matter because this is just the first one. We do not expect to bore you as it were, but we go straight to the conversation. And it's something interesting, really. On the weekend special, we will be having a little bit of a twist as opposed to how you have it on the weekdays, right? It might not be fully analysis based. It might just be subject focused or issue focused or concept focused. And so we'll be talking about education extra. And I'll just use the opportunity to, use it as a follow-up of what we did last on the Friday. That's yesterday. We had a great time talking about much more than WAEC, but now we're talking about education extra. And really, it's just a call and a reawakening to everybody out there to try as much as possible to get to realize that it is time for us to begin to look at the benefits of the industry and the sector and the sphere of education. And we know that Education Extra, of course, today is even an extra episode, but it's also opportunity for us to really talk and rub minds together. What's your thoughts? How can we really have that concept? Because we know that really education is not just existing in itself. Education is actually existing for other things. So it's one of those dynamic sectors that is a plug to a lot of things. And if we are really sincere about the work we do, and if we really be practical and honest with how we work, I believe that, when it comes to education, we must see beyond a structure or a prototype of getting people engaged till they get into the place where they need to work. And so education really today we'll be spending time to talk about the purpose of education again, talk about the problems of education again, talk about the possibilities of education, to talk about principles to facilitate education, and we'll talk about the profiting of education. That's what we're going to be doing on Education Extra today, and I already have one of our analysts already on standby, and hopefully maybe we'll have a full house. But guess what? We're going to have a great time. This is the Good Morning Education Show, the first Saturday of September, also the first Saturday show. Tell someone that you're a part of it. Send the link to someone, send the post to someone. We are here and we are live. And I'll really be looking forward to your questions and contributions. And I promise that as you send your questions and your contributions, I'm going to show it to the world. I'm going to treat those questions as much as we can. I'm going to be looking forward to you also sharing with us as well. So let's welcome the Olu Carlos. Good morning, Fee. How are you? And welcome to the first show, the Saturday show on the Good Morning Education Show. So I think you should be one of the first people I should ring the bell of blessing for being bold enough to join us on the Good Morning Education Show. Saturday should also be called Saturday Extra because we are talking about education extra. What a way to start. So, welcome to the show. How do you feel that this is almost like an extended Monday to Friday? How does it feel? You're talking on the show today. Tell us.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to our tribe. Good morning, Nigeria. And welcome to the Saturday, to the extended Good Morning Education show. It feels exciting. It feels like, yeah, going for like your favorite friend's birthday party and you're looking forward to having fun. It's different from in a way it feels like yeah, out of the weekly office party and into like going to work on a weekend and you can be free to just relax and be yourself without all the finery of official work during the week. That's how it feels this morning. And it's great to be here. It's great to see this new direction and to see where it is taking us to.
Fantastic. So we have we're going straight to the conversation of the day, and we have a conversation that says education extra. Education extra. I was trying to have more like a beginning or a feel or an intro to those who probably be following us today. But I just want to also hear from you. What's your thought? What's your take? What's your concept? What's your understanding of education having an extra?
When I think of education extra, I think of all the other things that come in with education. So something different from curriculum, something different from the educators themselves, something different from research and training, different from all the serious things we discuss about education. I'm thinking of the other aspects of education that we don't really talk about or that we don't really pay so much attention to. And it's like saying, okay, so let's take a step back. Let's reevaluate things, or let's just look at the unofficial side of education, if I can put it that way. I look at education extra and look at things like, okay, so what if a teacher decides I'm not coming to school today to teach, I want to teach from my house and use maybe like a Google Classroom and then I'm projecting it or a dress down day for teachers where in some schools it's almost dress down day every day. You don't have to look very in covered shoes and suits or semi suits or stuff like that. So I'm looking at things like that and how they contribute to the full picture of education, to the full reality of the system and what keeps it going. Because well, we know that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So this for me is like the play aspect of it. I don't know if that's the direction, but that's what this makes. So that's the interpretation that I get from Education Extra.
Thank you very much. And the good thing about it is that when you look at Education Extra in terms of the conceptualization of this, we also cannot limit it. So it's not wrong, it's not right, it's not left, it's not, it's not up, it's not down. So I believe that it's important for us to identify what really the extra should be. And the extra should come from what is, the extra should come from how people can begin to modify. Yeah, so for you, like for example, you said that you're looking at something that is exciting and interesting, something that is evolving, something that is extensive and expansive in nature. But then, of course, we know that it's important for us to also look at it from this angle, that while we look at education and we look at education extra, before we even begin to create toppings as the extra, we need to come back to the very first cardinal concept. And we sometimes need to retrace it to remind ourselves of what education is and the purpose of education. And when we recognize that, we can also speak about how can this be internalized or integrated to our own realities, right? So when you hear the word education, what comes to your mind? What should come to an average person's mind? People listening to us who are into business, listening to us who are into enterprise development, listening to us who are even educators themselves, who are school owners, regulators, administrators, teachers, caregivers, parents who are also listening in today. What comes to mind when we say education? Over to you, Finn.
Education for me is a process, is a yeah, it's a process of instruction and learning. So education is, but maybe I could say also an arrangement that ensures that one person, at least on the other side, is one person is on the side of learning, one person is on the side of instruction and giving instruction. So I would, it's, I would say it's systemic. It's a systemic process of teaching and of learning. Sometimes it's within a a framework that we could call schools or institutions. Other times, it's without that framework. It's something that you pick up maybe while reading a book or or orally from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren. Sometimes it's in experiences that you have in life. Um, I had one of those educating experiences this week. And I'm sure the person on the other side also learned something from it. So for me, it's a system. It's that system where one person or more than one person is teaching and another person or is giving instruction and another person is taking that instruction and is making them better for life. Your mic is muted.
Sorry. Thank you so much for that. Like you said, I like to just stress on the area where people need to understand that education is not just um, education is meant to be seen from different dimensions. First, you must see education as an outcome. I'm sure most of us, as we've used this or we've heard people use this word, go get an education. You need an education on this matter, get educated. So we look at it from the outcomes, that your ability to get oriented, to be equipped, to be informed, and also to be groomed and nurtured. Those words seem to wrap themselves around the reality of education. But when you take it again, we should understand that education is not just an outcome, it's also a process. It's a process. And that's why you sometimes even look at the formal school system and you can take a clue from why a lot of times sequence is wired to what is taught. Unlike sometimes what we see in in the social media space and in the emergence of knowledge space, you find out that there's so much push of content, and some of the people pushing the content with the desires that are good, they don't know how to sequence this knowledge. In fact, one of the things confusing entrepreneurs today is the fact that the authors of the communication or the authors of the content have not been schooled in how to sequence their content. So you see, sometimes somebody says, let me teach you how to become a millionaire. And then they start teaching you from the branding perspective rather from the rudiment of business perspective. And so you find out that a lot of times people know so much about their growth rather than their state. So it's like you've been taught so much about your future, and then you are not even able to assess the reality on ground. You don't know how to start from where you are. And a lot of times it gives excitement at the place of learning, but it causes frustration post-learning. And it's because that's the reason why sometimes people wonder that what's so special about teachers. Teachers, especially people who are trained, already know that knowledge must be distilled in the right sequence. I'm sure you agree with me, Finn. So education is an outcome. It's also a process. I must be able to introduce a concept to you. You must be able to comprehend that concept. You must be able to accept it, internalize it. You must be able to apply it. Processing before application. And then if you also go back to it, education is an outcome, it's a process. Education is also considered a platform, meaning that it is upon which some things will thrive. And we've always said it over and over again, the kind of system or the model of education being practiced in a particular climate, a particular continent, a particular nation should not be outside the level of economic, development, or better still, the industrial advancement of that nation. So you will find it a different plug. You'll find it like a mismatched reality. If you are raising people in the place of knowledge and empowerment, and it is not driving economic advancement. So what happens is you get informed, you don't get empowered. What happens is you get equipped, but you don't get as you don't get enabled. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And those two things, we can totally see it as our reality in present day Nigeria, for example. So those who are listening to us out there, we're talking about Education Extra, and this is the first Saturday show. So sometimes I'm sure some people are wondering, is this a pre-recorded? It's not pre-recorded. This is live, flesh and blood. This is Saturday, 4th of, you will not even know if it wasn't live though, but this is live. Yes, we are here. It's not a mistake. We're not playing around. We're not messing around. This is the Good Morning Education Show. Yes, I said it, the Good Morning Education Show. So let me just say this and then I'll ask the next question. Let me just say this and then I'll ask the next question. And the question I'd like to ask you is this, right? Let me just say this before the question I'm going to ask you. The thing is this, we let me just ask you so I don't get distracted. What exactly would you consider the purpose of education?
For me, it's very simple. It's enlightenment. It's to shed light on the mind. It's
Mm,
to help to expand the mind. It's to help to see possibilities. It's to help to know that there is much more than we see around us. So for me, the purpose of education is simply enlightenment.
okay, the purpose of education is enlightenment. And, you just like kind of took the words out of my mouth because I normally tell people that when the purpose of something is not known, misuse is inevitable, abuse is inevitable, familiarity is inevitable, um, um, loss of leverage is inevitable, a lot of things, but most importantly, chaos is inevitable. And if you look at it, the purpose of education, I like to say it as two major purposes, wherein every other thing gets to be plugged into it. There are two main purposes of education, whether from the outcome, from the process, from the platform, or from the rudiment and the fabric of society. Number one purpose is that the purpose of education is to prepare people for the future. Prepare people for the future. And when I say people, I'm very, very generous with the word people, meaning that education should not be seen as something that eliminates any age range. It should not be seen as something that eliminates any gender. It should not be seen as something that eliminates any race. It should not be seen as eliminating any kind of ability. Do you understand? So it must be able to do what? It must be able to prepare people for the future. It prepares males for the future, prepares female for the future, prepare adults for the coming future, prepare young adults for the coming future, prepare children for the future, prepare all kinds of people, prepare the disabled, prepare the ones with special needs for the future. If your education is not preparing people for the future, then number two, it should be making people create the future. That's the second purpose of education. The purpose of education is to make people create the future or prepare people for the coming future. Now, if the education being practiced or the education being experienced does not prepare people for the future, does not make people create the future, then that's when it's right when people say, who does education help? Because I don't think anybody can authoritatively say he's empowered if he cannot fit into a future or is not creating the future. Do you get my drift? It puts you almost at a disadvantage. And we need to be honest with ourselves. As you know, just like you said, enlightenment, you know, enlightenment does a lot of things to the individual. It opens your eyes, not just for awareness. It opens your mind, not just for information. It also strengthens your hand for activation. It moves and mobilizes your feet for advancement. Then, of course, you see that the total entire being is getting what you call progression. Why? Because enlightenment is always, always superior. Is always, always superior at all times. And this is really what people out there should understand, that education in whatever form, in whatever medium, in whatever season, should create the future. It should not just stop there. It should prepare people for the future. And really, this is what it is all about. You know, that's where we can now begin to comprehend the place of extra. And of course, when we talk about extra, no one can run away from the word extraordinary. It means that could we be safe to say, and this is a question to you, Finn, that if education has no extra in it, it is ordinary. Over to you, Finn.
Definitely, if there is no extra to education, it is just education. It is ordinary education. I recently was listening to somebody speak, and he said something about, although he was talking about religion, but he mentioned that we cannot continue using the old system of evangelism, and expect to have new results and expect to have new results in having people maybe join the church. And the same thing with education. We can't continue to use the same systems that were in place from the beginning when that form or that system of instruction started out, and expect to prepare for the future. It's not going to work. So there has to be that extra added to it. That extra may be in form of innovation. That extra may be in form of creativity. That extra may be in form of disruption. There are times we really need to disrupt the system to bring about the kind of results that we need. Disruption is not always negative. We may need to just say, look, the classroom doesn't have to be four walls. Can we make it a secular space? Can we redesign? Can we change our seats? Can we switch seats to and bring in maybe cushions or pillows or long pillows? Or what can we bring in that would make students and teachers feel more comfortable and put them in that space where they're able to think beyond the media? They're able to look beyond and say, oh, a child, for example, is looking at is has always been used to walls being having corners, and suddenly he sees a circular room, maybe like a silo, or is maybe like in a tower or a lighthouse, and he sees that a wall does not always have to have corners. It sets him thinking. It sets her thinking, and she's, what else can I move out of the place where and create something else. So yes, I agree that there has to be that extra added to education. That's what takes it away from being the mundane. That's what makes it a lot more attractive even for students. Somebody was telling me about her daughter and how the daughter doesn't like to go to school. Initially, she thought it was something about the school. Later, she thought it was something about the teacher. So this holiday period, she changed. She enrolled her daughter in summer school in a completely different school, and still the girl does not want to go. So it says something about maybe the concepts that she has, the idea that she has related or that she's relating to school or to education. And it just feels like, no, 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 I don't want to go to that place. I'd rather be at home. I'd rather play with my toys, or I'd rather watch TV, or I'd rather just stay with my mommy. There is the need for us. We can't overstate it. There is a need for us, and where we now add the extra, it shouldn't just be anyhow extra. It should be that extra that actually brings about the change, that actually brings about a shaking, that brings about a complete overhaul of the system.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And it's important that people understand this because um, there has to be that connecting point. Where we're able to link up. Each component. We're able to link them up independently, and it becomes um, a complete experience. Becomes something totally holistic in nature. I think that we need to understand that one of the ways to achieve it and achieve education extra is to make education extra, flip it around and make it extra education. So what it simply means is there's a need for visioning and there's a need for vitality. Visioning means that we need to comprehend what will the extra be so that it's not just a mere activity of addition. Extra, yes, connotes addition, but if we add on to things that are not relevant, it's no addition at all. If we add on to things that do not improve, it's no addition at all. So we must begin to think of the extra in a place where we conceptualize it, but we also must put vigor and vitality to that extra, meaning that we must say that extra education is required for us to achieve education extra. Extra education in the place of orientation, in the place of teaching, in the place of training, in the place of immersion, in the place of creativity, in the place of mentorship. A lot of people sometimes don't know that the reason why we've not really burst out with confidence applying new methodology is probably because we've not coached these people into that practice. Could it be that it's because of the deficit of mentorship that has been absent in a lot of people that we don't have some of these things happening in the real sense of it? And so maybe when we now begin to understand that beyond the basic open door training, open door, conversation, we begin to now get people to be coached into peak performance, to be coached into industry advancement. Maybe that's when we begin to see some things begin to ultimately move, in our favor. That's what I think. What's your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. We need to, this extra, it can be before, it can be after, it can be, we can put it pre the word education, or put it post the word education. What it just means, what it simply means is that we cannot afford to continue to do business as usual. One of the things that, or one example I would give about with education extra is some of the things that we have seen in the headlines recently about students from Green Springs. Was it Green Springs that developed an app to track kidnapped students? There was another one where some female students, I believe, maybe female or male, I can't remember exactly, developed sanitary pads from banana leaves, I think. We've had all these innovations. We've had a Nigerian student being named as one of the brightest in the world. I think that was in the news last week. And these things would not happen if the extra is not added to education. If all we do is come to class and say 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, 4 plus 4 is equal to 8, and we stop it there, we're not challenging the kids to ask what and what else can give me 5, what and what else can give me 40, and we're not getting them to think and to to challenge their thinking, then we're not adding the extra to it. And not adding the extra to it means that I don't really see it as education. I see it as just passing instruction and saying, do this, and then the respondents, who are the learners, are just responding to stimuli and doing it, whether they want it or not. And it takes me to yesterday's topic about just um, preparing for exam simply because you want to pass, not preparing for exam as a way to test um, the knowledge. Is it even testing? I don't think it's testing of knowledge. I think it's an expression of knowledge. You have learned something, and then you want to express what you have learned. So you express it by giving answers. It's just like having a discussion, but in this case, you're writing your discussion down on paper. If we don't begin to add that extra to it, then examinations, tests, and all of that will still be seen as a form of punishing students for being in school. Because the way, to be sincere, the way these things look like, this evaluation, evaluation methods, or the way it looks like is like it's a punishment. Oh, the moment you step into school at the beginning of the session, at the beginning of the term, it's like, let's wait for exams, or let's wait for half one test. And the student is already like, seriously, from there, their mind is not in learning. Their mind is in, I just have to make this grade. I just have to make this figure for me to be able to maybe move to the next class, or so that extra is in us changing the entire face. That extra is in us saying, at the end of an education cycle, at the end of a cycle where we can evaluate, what do we want to see, or what do we want to have, what do we want our students to have added to themselves, and also what do we want our teachers to have added to themselves at the end of that cycle. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. we cannot um, we cannot underestimate, and neither can we say it's overrated. And I want us to realize that this is something that must become a pursuit rather than a topic to be learnt. Because we must understand it's like a moving target when we speak of the word extra. I've had privilege to let people know when I'm having trainings, better is considered the enemy of best. And so when something better appears, it sends best into a state of obsolescence, you know, or a state of being obsolete, you know. So I want people out there to begin to think about it. What's the extra in the education that they require? and what's the extra education that will enable them to achieve and acquire that. When we're able to do all that, then it puts us in a better position, it puts us in a better state, puts us in a better reality. And we've been having a great time. I'm sure you've been having a great time here today. This is the first Saturday on the Good Morning Education Show weekend special, and we're talking about the education. I'm talking about education extra. We've been here for the past 40 minutes thereabout, and we don't intend to use an hour today. We just wanted to launch this, add value, spice up your breakfast, and make sure that you start the weekend on the right note. And if you had fun today, please do type to us, send it to us. You had a great time today. We're going to be ending the show in the next few minutes. And before we end the show, I'd like to ask me, what will be your parting shots for those who are listening out there on the topic? And then, of course, would you encourage them also to be a part of it tomorrow as well? Thank you.
I'm a huge advocate of um, disruption. I'm a huge advocate of not doing things because that's how it's done. Just the reason is just because that's how it's done. So, for educators out there, I would say that we should task our processes. We should task, we should look for a way to shake up things in our classrooms. We should give our students a memorable time of learning, a memorable time in testing. We should leave them with an impression that seeking knowledge is not something that should take their blood. Yes, it can take sweat, but it should not take their blood. There are people who today have sworn off education or further education because of the experiences they had. I was almost in that place where I said, no, I'm not doing anymore. Enough is finally enough. But for some reason, I found a ginger to go on. And so, to educators out there, what I would like to say to us this morning is learn to poke, learn to poke more, learn to dig deeper and find out how else can I do this. I would give one example before I round off. There was a time we had our literacy session in class. The students were, our kids were to read, and we asked them to, one of them suggested that could they go to the library to read. And the reason they wanted to go to the library is that the school library had cushions, so you didn't always have to sit on chairs. You could use the cushions, put the cushion on the floor, and lie down like that. So, we just thought, why not make our classroom something very similar to the library? So they all went to the library. They got cushions. They came back to the classroom. Pushed all our tables and chairs away to the walls, and it was interesting to see children read quietly without anybody urging them to. Some put their pillows under the table, some put it on top of the table. They just took different positions, and it was beautiful to see children reading. They asked, "Can we do this tomorrow?" That taught me that it's not always forced to get children to do things. We think, oh, they don't love to read. It's not true. It's because we just haven't found the right method or the right way for them to read. These were children that were looking forward to reading the next day simply because there was a change, there was a disruption in the system they were used to of sitting at a desk, holding a book, and just they could lie down, they could lie on their face, they could lie on their back, they could lie on their side. Either way, they took any position that was comfortable and convenient for them. So please, let's find that extra and add it to education. And in rounding off, I would say that we are here again tomorrow. It definitely will not be in the morning. It will also be streaming from our different places of worship. And we do not want to also disrupt your system like that. But we'll be here tomorrow by 5 p.m. with another interesting episode of the Good Morning Education Show. And now I feel like, this is like having the best, like you have something you really love or or you have a particular food you love and you love to binge on it, so this is an opportunity to binge on the Good Morning Education show every day of the week and have your morning, and on Sundays have your evenings started off in a spectacular way. Join us tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Gideon SM, for joining. A bell of blessing for you.
Hi,
And
Gideon.
also, for those of you who will be meeting us tomorrow, we are also in the spirit of disruption, disrupting your Sunday evening by bringing morning into evening. So tomorrow is still good morning education, even though it's an evening show. So it's always a great morning, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening or night on the Good Morning Education show. Join us tomorrow at 5, I believe. Am I correct? 5
Yes,
p.m.
5 p.m.
We will be here 5 p.m. We're going to share some time together. And it's not necessarily going to be an hour. It might be an hour, who knows? But tomorrow, we have something that you don't want to miss. And we're going to start the next week in a special way. Use this as your learning development tool. Use this as a continuous personal development tool. Use this as an opportunity to progress yourself and the lives of others that you would like to touch. From us on the show, we're signing out now because we've had a great time. We always do have a great time. And that's what we're going to do as we say our payoff at the count of two. One, two, go. It's
It's
always
always a great
a great
morning
morning on the Good Morning
on the Good
Education Show.
Morning Education Show.
Take care. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.